Anyone have that moment where they've shared just a little bit too much, gotten a little uncomfortable? There are no hands.
80% of women wear the wrong bra size today.
80%?
80%.
We are building a real-time, personalized running form application.
Fitness space, tough one, right?
But gosh, it takes a lot of willpower and a lot of drive to make that happen.
What is market? What should my deal say?
Restaurant startups, hard.
Very hard.
They don't understand the value that these influencers bring because there is no data currently available.
Influencer startups, also hard.
That's another set of businesses we don't like.
Hiring engineers, so if anybody is excited about it.
It's good someone's hiring.
Welcome to the Feedback Loop, episode 5 of the Feedback Loop. I am super excited for this one. Let me start by saying, if you have not been to the Feedback Loop, if you have not heard of the Feedback Loop, if you're watching for the first time, the whole concept is to give founders the feedback that allows them to craft, refine, and improve the core essence of it all, the storytelling, the narrative that they've constructed around their business. As John, who I'll introduce in a sec, can tell you, that can hold even the best of founders back, or at least that's what I think. We'll see if John agrees. And whether you have the right product, the right idea, the right team, it's the right moment, the ability to tell that refined story, again, can either make you fly or make you go a little too slow. So that's what we've done with the Feedback Loop. It's in several fun episodes in a row. Excited to be doing it every single Monday, which has been awesome. And every single Monday, I get to welcome a guest VC to the table to be my co-feedback giver, co-host, co-judge, all the nouns. And I'm super excited for this one. John Frankel, before we get into the meat of founders pitching, and we'll do a little bit of rambling on the market to begin, I want to give a quick intro on you for the crowd.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to an exciting evening. My name is John Frankel. I founded FF Venture Capital, 16 years ago. We have an office in New York. We have an office in Warsaw. We're opening an office now in Dubai. We're an early stage technology investor, and I'm excited for how things are going to unfold today.
Fantastic. Before we get into the founders giving their pitch, what do you think about, the concept of not the Feedback Loop literally as a show, but the idea of the pitch? How important, how underrated, overrated do you think it is? What do you think founders should think about when they're, kind of in this early moment as it relates to making this something they focus on?
It's very much not seeing the wood for the trees for a lot of founders. For some reason, they cannot explain what they're doing in simple language. I often stop founders and say, explain to me like I'm a 4-year-old, because I'm a VC, so I have an attention span of a 4-year-old. But explain it in simple language. Don't say, the Airbnb for strippers, or, the A for B is really annoying. Explain what you're doing. Use simple language. People at their core are storytelling and story consuming entities. And we love stories. And when you put a pitch together, you need to be able to tell a story. And your pitch deck should follow that story arc. And it's difficult, and you have to abstract yourself away from what you're working on 24/7 to try and explain it to someone else. But that's what you need to be able to do. And ultimately, you need the VC to buy into the story, particularly at the early stage, because there aren't numbers, there aren't metrics. So it's a leap of faith, and you have to convince them that this is an important space. So yeah, story is very important.
I love that. Well said. And I think one of the things that I think is also happening right now is that early stage convincing VCs is becoming more difficult than it's been over the past 5 years, 6 years, or at least the amount of easy money floating around has definitely decreased. And so I think it's a moment where being persuasive, compelling, and visionary in your pitch is probably more important than it's been in quite some time. If you had to give a sense of the market to early stage founders right now, people in pre-seed, seed, what does it feel like? How have things been, in the past 2-3 months of 2024?
I think it feels like it sucks. But I want to be clear, over the last 16 years, it's felt like it sucked. Oh gosh, when was it? 5-6 years ago, we were talking about the Series A crunch. Do you remember that?
Yep.
There's always a Series A crunch. There's always a Series B crunch. But if you have 100 seed funded companies, about 30 raise a Series A, about 10 raise a Series B, about 1 goes public, about 16 get acquired for M&A. So there's crunches all the way along. And I think what keeps people in the game is the pure excitement of forcing your will on millions of people. You're trying to change the behavior of millions of people, whether it's enterprise, whether it's consumer. And it's fascinating that you can do that. We have a company we backed almost 5 years ago. And it's last mile drone delivery, which might sound crazy now, may not. 5 years ago, it was a little more crazy.
Yeah.
And, we just really liked the CEO and liked the opportunity. And, the company is now up and running, delivering on contribution margin positive, hundreds of deliveries a day with beyond visual line of sight license, etc. And it's in its infancy. I think this will be a multi-$10 billion revenue opportunity they can go after. But this is a CEO who's driven and is looking to change the way people receive goods, food, Guinness, shopping, medicines, and the like. But gosh, it takes a lot of willpower and a lot of drive to make that happen.
It is such a long-term game too, to your point about that startup in general 5 years ago seeming crazier than it does today and still in its infancy. I think all of it ties to founders needing to be so mission and vision aligned that they're willing to chug through all of that for that long and have times where the pitch is working and resonating and other times where they sound like the crazy person in the room. And eventually, hopefully, they do all the work that makes it work out.
Indeed.
With that in mind, let me tell you how this is going to work. We're going to bring a founder one at a time. They're going to have a minute to pitch. I'm going to let them know when that minute is over. Then we're going to give them 5 minutes of Q&A and feedback that will hopefully change the way their narrative works for them moving forward. With that in mind, let's give a big round of applause to our first founder. All right, grab the mic. Tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
Tammy, are you ready to give us your pitch and then receive some feedback?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Well, Tammy, you have a minute. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tammy Erdfarb, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Elain. Elain is the e-database for legal and industry norms. Elain is going to disrupt how business deals are contemplated and executed. Essentially, we're answering the question is, what is market? What should my deal say? Elain bridges the gap between business and legal with AI-driven, with AI-driven market norms that are accessible, easy to use, and affordable at the click of a button as well. So Elain bridges the gap. Elain answers the question. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Okay. I apologize.
You're all good.
Elain answers the long question, the question every business and lawyer has. In my 15 years of being a lawyer, both in-house and in big law, every business and every lawyer needs to know, what should my deal say? Elain brings you the answer to what your deal should say, shows you the market norms, then shows you where that information came from, all the other relevant information, and why you should care. And then Elain goes one step further and shows you every other deal contemplated, similar deal contemplated by that company. Is that a minute? I can keep going.
That's a little over a minute, but you're good.
Okay.
Good job. Well done. So a lot of great nuggets in there. Let's peel it out a little bit. If I'm hearing correctly about, kind of some of the pieces there, it's about market norms at its core, right? Is that kind of like the value proposition versus all the other legal AI startups that are out there?
That is exactly what makes us different from every other legal AI. We do not care where a fancy, pretty paragraph came from. It means nothing to anybody who's done a business deal or contemplated a legal document. We always want to know, where did that come from? Why do I care? And how does that relate to the business deal I'm dealing with now? Every legal document is a memorialization of a business deal. We need to bridge the gap between business and legal. Legal is very concerned with a pretty document. I worked in the firms. It's really nice. Pretty document that tells you every legal thing possible. Business does not care. It takes too long and it's not what we're interested in. Give me the best market terms I can get. That is what Elain provides in a few clicks of a button with some prompts. It is designed for both business and legal professionals to use. So my ideal client would be a business development team or an in-house department or a venture capital that has a bunch of subs. You always need to know, what should my deal say? And where do you find that information currently? You either have business professionals that have been doing this for 30 plus years, but may not know the specific, have access to this vast amount of information that I do, or you have to go to your law firm, which then takes either they know it by volume and experience or a bunch of expensive associate research. I've done both. It is not pretty. I can get you 50 hours of legal research, but let's not call it that. Let's call it business terms in seconds that are clickable and you can cross-reference to find market.
What do you think, John?
What stage is this at? Are you at the concept stage? Do you have customers?
I have an MVP and I should have customers on and beta testers on, or design partners. Sorry.
So, I think it's worth mentioning in the story that you're at the point of implementation, that you have a proof of concept or a beta customer working with you. I think that's worth saying. The other thing is,
can I predict what you're about to say? Are you about to say what you said a year ago here during a fireside chat? AI is electricity?
Yeah, well, kind of, but a little different. When the internet came along 24 years plus ago, everything was an internet company. And then a few years later, having a website and being an internet company kind of faded away. AI will go the same way. Like electricity, it'll just become part of the infrastructure. So as VCs, when we look at the space, so we've been investing in AI for, 8+ years. But for most VCs coming to this since ChatGPT exploded, it's like, I got to invest in AI companies. And then it's like, I don't know how to think about AI companies. And then AI companies were kind of not getting funded. And now people are a little bit more sophisticated. But the biggest issue is whatever you're using it for today, what stops someone in 2 years coming after you, or what stops what you're doing just becoming a feature of OpenAI?
Foundational models.
I love all of your questions. I can answer them.
But
Yeah.
that's the hump you need to get over in
I
your
100%
story.
agree.
Is that thing. So for instance, today with OpenAI's announcement, I saw on Twitter, here are the 8 YC companies that now are worthless. Now, I don't think that's actually true, but the point being that VCs have to think about what the future barriers to entry will be. And so this is part of, I think, what you need to work in, if not in the 1-minute pitch, in the 3-minute pitch.
It's in the 3-minute pitch. Let me answer all of those questions. As an IP lawyer, I 100% agree. We don't touch ChatGPT with a 10-foot pole. We use open source and wrote all of our own code. Elain is called Elain, not Elain AI, because I agree with you. It's going to become a moment in time. Like, it's going to identify you if you came out during this year. The other thing is, we're not using AI to generate in the way that ChatGPT is doing or the way other people are doing it. We're using it in the way large language models were intended, as an extension of our brains. So the way it works is the way that we work on things. It's just that our brains are not big enough to hold what a vector could hold. That's what Elain is giving you. It's giving you the market information you need using large language models, because we cannot possibly get through all that.
I'm curious, when you think about how people do the job today, and by the way, I think that's good that you made that part of your pitch, because that credibility is essential for something like this.
Part of my pitch.
Yeah,
I'm an IP lawyer.
Exactly. We need to hear that. So when that happens, tell me, how often do you think, I'm going to use the word wrong here, but how often are deal terms wrong? I don't mean literally like incorrect, invalid, illegal, or, violating some sort of agreement, but instead, how often do you think, because of the limitation of that human brain, that, associate on the other side, whatever it might be, they're not ideal, unoptimized?
I can't give you a percentage because I only like to speak on things that I know about 100%. But I can tell you that the way it works in a firm is you'll deal with a precedent document. So that's where your market will come from. However, firm precedents, even the best ones, are dependent on the partner you're talking to. So you can end up with a very stale precedent because that's something the partner...
When you say precedent, it's like the firm's done a deal like this before.
Market norms.
So it's kind of like...
What are you basing your next deal on?
Right.
So what I'm showing you is a cross-reference of the entire industry, which if we're in a longer pitch, I would explain Elain's market is going after the life science industry because it is untapped in this area, and life science will not touch anything that says they can do. If somebody says I can do everything for everybody, that does not apply to life science in the slightest. I have an entire market that's not tapped and that we're going after.
So this is the part of your pitch that I really want you to zero in on. I think will really change how people receive it. If you say something to the effect of, if you have to understand how market deals are done today, it's firm precedent, as in there's a partner who did a deal like this a few years ago, and that's what's used to determine what the deal should be today. But what Elain enables using AI and the ability to search across market data, across past practices and norms, is for the same associate, attorney, or partner to actually utilize the entire trove of what deals have been done in the industry, what deals have been done in similar industries or adjacencies or adjacent types of agreements, and bring all of that context into the moment of creating an agreement, bringing the market, making the market terms truly about what's in the market, not about what just happened for that firm, that partner in the past 2 years. There's this thing that you made me realize when you defined a little bit more about the role today, that the limitation is the attorney today is just working off of whatever's convenient to them. And what you're suggesting is actually they shouldn't do that. They should look to a wider set of market norms, and utilizing AI and Elain, they actually get to do that.
Okay, so in my longer pitch, I talk about my experience, which I ran a biotech VC, more of an incubator family of funds, and it was a bunch of startups. So we had no resources. Then going into a large firm and gobsmacked by the amount of resources. What Elain is solving for is a real world problem that business face and lawyers face. So while I love your pitch for me, which I will take, thank you, I also want to add the other half of my pitch, which is if you see Elain, which I do have an MVP ready, almost ready for testers, you will see that I designed it for business teams as well. Why limit it to just lawyers? That's where the affordability and accessibility is. I have made it where you answer a couple of prompts. It's not intimidating to business people, and it is obviously easy for lawyers to use. But I did design it for a 55-year-old law firm partner who will spend zero time learning new tech. So it's very accessible. There's a couple buttons you click, and it gives you all of the market information you could need.
That's awesome. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Thank
Good job.
you.
All right. Before we bring our next founder up, that quote of yours about AI being electricity, and to your point, it's mobile, it's internet, has stuck with me since you first said it on this stage a year ago at a fireside chat. I'm not kidding you. I brought it up so many times.
I apologize for repeating myself.
It's such a key point for people to realize. And, just to give the crowd a sense of how it resonated for me, it's this idea that some companies are building, true either foundational models or use cases that are only enabled through a very particular technical use of artificial intelligence. But most companies are something else. And AI is just like a database. AI is just like cloud services. AI is just like your legal team. It enables the rest of your business model and the rest of your innovation. And I think if people realize that as part of your pitch, they won't make the mistake of pitching themselves as an AI company, which actually might make their overall pitch seem weaker because they're now being compared to other AI companies as opposed to, let's say, other legal tech, other healthcare, other B2B.
It's important people understand customers are buying a solution. They're not buying, when you take something like an iPhone, right? I don't know how many layers of AI are in here. There's neural engines, there's whatever, bionic chips. I don't know. Are we on trionic or quadronic chip? I have no idea. People don't really care about the chips. They care when they point the camera and take a picture that it's fast and it looks good.
Yeah.
And there is an enormous amount of AI around fast and looks good. And if you're a technical geek, it can be explained to you. But the consumer just wants a solution. And the same thing comes, you apply AI, how to actually make a better solution. It's kind of cool, but I wonder, we could do a show of hands in this room, how many people subscribed for GPT-4 when it came out and have abandoned the subscription since?
Let's do first, who has ever subscribed to ChatGPT Pro? All right, now put your hand down if you unsubscribed, if you no longer use it. So
about 2/3 of that third.
Yeah.
And because it's really cool, but it doesn't change my life.
Right.
And so thinking in terms of end solutions and applications is important.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's got the new shiny thing, AI in it.
Right. Totally. Well, with that, let's bring up our second founder. Come on up. Welcome. Go ahead and grab that mic and tell us, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Vaishnav.
Tell us, you have a minute. Are you ready to give us your pitch and receive some feedback?
Sure.
All right. You have a minute. Tell us what you're building.
Hi, Vaishnav. So we are Codexa. The problem we are solving right now is a lot of enterprise software companies or software companies in general get requests from their clients or customer for one specific feature or some additional glue code, which will enable the product, like the software company is building, to be integrated into the client's existing systems. So building this one-off feature can be tedious for the enterprise software company, wherein they have to spend valuable developer hours building that feature instead of focusing on their core product experience. So we at Codexa are building a AI end-to-end code generation platform, which can take natural language text or natural language prompts to just generate this very specific glue code so that it can be integrated into client systems. We focus on two things, which is human in the loop planning and our own proprietary prompting schemes, so that this using just few natural language prompts, we'll be able to generate the required code. We want to change the developer experience from the current solutions where you have assistance and autocomplete kind of thing to auto generation.
That's about a minute. Good job.
Thank you.
Shall I go first? So, there's this interesting thing in that pitch. Tell me if I latched on to something appropriately about this is meant for agencies or enterprise development shops who have clients, right? This is aimed at people who are building code for others. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're currently looking at both the things. Like, you have a software product and you want to sell it like a normal SaaS product or something. Like, you have existing systems with the client which you want to integrate. Like
But you are saying client a lot here. So do you mean that?
Customer.
Am I understanding? Right. But am I understanding correctly? Like, this would be targeted at a firm that has clients that they're building for?
Yes.
Is there a reason? I could imagine there's like a go-to-market reason, but is there like a business reason that you want to target them as opposed to companies directly who have their own software engineering teams and have to build their own features?
This is through some customer feedback which we had. Like, after talking to some people, we felt it is easier to pilot through these people.
To pilot through these people.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that question, I think it's actually really interesting. When I realized that's what you were saying, I almost became more excited. That doesn't mean you should change your entire business to just do this. But the reason I got more excited is I was like, oh, maybe it is a go-to-market pitch and go-to-market innovation. Because what you essentially are saying is there's an underrated code generation use case out there where the pain point is actually really sharp. And as agencies and these development shops where a client requesting a feature 7 months after the initial build can be really costly because our engineers who built the initial product already left, or the feature is actually completely adjacent. And so again, distracting that entire team, like you said, can be so distracting for that firm. And so to build a purpose-built, specific to this use case solution is going to save these firms a lot of time and money. And we think it's a go-to-market path that other companies in the space aren't taking. So, again, I don't know if you want to focus on that use case or not, but I noticed it in your pitch, and it actually got me imagining a lot about why that would work.
Okay.
So, hear me out here. This reminded me of a clip that's been circulating on Twitter recently of Ali G talking about the total addressable market for his, I think, ice cream product. And folks should look it up. It's hilarious because addressable markets, VCs, we want, massive addressable markets. The reason why it made me think about that is in your 1 minute pitch, if you say that your go-to-market strategy is your addressable market, it seems very narrow. And the problem you describe is a problem not just in development shops, but large corporates who have this code base and then need to make small changes to it. So I think you should be really talking about folks who have code bases and maybe the team's moved on, or maybe people are bored internally with that particular thing, but the users need these additional items added. and it enables them to be prioritized and brought forward. If you came in and pitched, well, we help dev shops be more efficient. I've already shrunk the whole coding universe down to dev shops. And it feels like a small addressable market. Whereas I think you can talk in terms of the larger picture and then how you're going to market, albeit in a 3-minute, not a 1-minute pitch.
Understood.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think it's exactly the opposite of what I was saying, but sounds right, which is don't focus on what I heard very specifically in your pitch, but instead focus on the innards of it, which is this whole idea of you can even use like an example. Oh, who uses Salesforce and who realizes why they won't release features as quickly as other firms? Well, because it's this old code base and it's, kind of spread across distributed teams over time, and ownership is, kind of spread across different portions of that business. So, identify maybe that anchor example where everyone can kind of go, oh yeah, that does really explain this, both from a why that company is in that state and why something like this could solve it for them.
Yeah, we actually have a company that is using generative AI to help front-end engineers be more efficient with snippets of code and also taking images and just turning them into code. Their go-to-market is to start with freelancers. And they're starting with freelancers because they think they're everywhere. They work in small shops, they work in large shops, and they want to be more efficient. And the decision-making is very narrow, one person, about what they do. So it's kind of interesting. You're taking this particular entry point, and it might be the right entry point for what you're doing, but don't rule out the whole addressable market.
Good job. Thanks for sharing. With these code generation startups, there's so many of them. And it feels like the thing that's happening is maybe they're competing with foundational models in some sense, where the updates to a GPT-4 or whatever Anthropic might release, all these foundational models, for example, GPT-4o that got announced today, its coding benchmark is just out of this world compared to GPT-4 Turbo and Claude Opus and all this other stuff. And so improvements to foundational models might outpace the development of these code generation startups.
So when we made the investment, we absolutely looked at that particular risk, and we felt there were things they were doing that would address that risk. But no, this is the whole point about if you invest in an AI company, does someone else get there faster with newer tech?
Right.
Or do the foundational guys just make you a feature?
Totally. Well, with that, let's bring up our next founder. Welcome up.
Carson.
How you doing, Carson?
All right. For the people who are listening to you via mic, what's your name again?
I'm Carson.
Awesome. Carson, are you ready to give us your pitch and then receive some feedback?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. You've got a minute. Go ahead.
Perfect. All right. So I just recently began running consistently, and I've absolutely fallen in love with it. But unfortunately, early on in my running career, I had no idea what I was doing. So I got injured very quickly. And so after about 2 weeks and $400 spent at physical therapy, I decided, why don't I just build a product to fix my running form myself? And so currently at Forma, we are building a real-time personalized running form application. Which allows runners to maximize performance while minimizing injury with the use of AI. And so the application will talk to the runners directly through their headphones while they're running, telling them if they're currently heel striking or facing any other injury-inducing running problems while they're running. And so we differ from our competition in the way that we only require the sensors on your iPhone to give real-time feedback during your workout. So thank you so much for your time.
Good job. I don't run, but I've curiosity about like the technology. Or tell us more about the sensors and what you're tracking and how.
Yeah. So in your iPhone, there are accelerometers in X, Y, and Z direction. And so using these accelerometers, you're actually able to pick out the ground contact time, which is one of the most important things in running form. So you want to maximize your ground contact time to increase performance and efficiency because you're able to put more energy into the ground, springing you forward. But you don't want to overdo it because that at that point you become less efficient if your ground contact time is too much. So we're trying to find data to apply to our machine learning algorithm to pick out good and bad running form using the ground contact time.
So you're building on top of someone else's platform, which is Apple's platform. The number of companies that have become features within the Apple ecosystem, and they become features when they become big. Mm-hmm. So if yours becomes a massive business, either other people will build on top of the same platform, or the platform will build it. Like, there used to be a lot of weather apps. Then Apple really built the best weather app out there. Point being, in this case, Apple is all about fitness. And why wouldn't they build that in as a feature? Now, they won't have the same focus and intensity that you have. I also wonder if this is a venture-backed or venture-backable business, the way it's constructed. And also people who run, some run for months, some run for years, but, I don't know if you can get an annuity revenue out of it over a long period of time. I do wonder though, because the same problems you're describing are the problems of people with conditions such as Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis, elderly, and the like, and the ability to predict falling and bad walking habits is really important. And so there may be something on the more medical side, mm-hmm. particularly if you combined it with an insole that goes, and now you're getting data off your own platform mm-hmm. combined with Apple's platform. And I can assure you, if someone has one of these conditions, and there's efficacy that they can fall less mm-hmm. or they can walk better, and you can predictively help them adjust before that happens, they'll pay you mm-hmm. $30 a month.
Mm-hmm. It's like a hardware insole into the shoe.
Well, I'm just saying, take another sensor so you're not just sitting on Apple's platform mm-hmm. and go after a group of people who will pay you. Mm-hmm. There's millions of people in the country who have these conditions. Yeah. And it would really improve their quality of life. And so, $30 a month, $300 a year, easy. And you have them signed up for, multiple years. Mm-hmm. So just the thought.
Yeah. Is that a thought, when you think about the core of your mission, is it running, or is running and these sensors a gateway into something else, whether it's more about running, or is it more about, kind of what we're talking about here, which is the ability to use motion mm-hmm. and tracking to predict and improve posture, movement, et cetera?
Yeah. So originally our mission was strictly looking at running. We have a team of 6 people who are all runners, and that's why we did this originally. But we have been discussing about potentially doing some sort of wearable as well. And I also just wanted to clarify that I didn't mean that only Apple phones. Any type of phone has the sensor. And so, yeah, we're mainly focusing on running, but that's a fantastic idea. We'll definitely discuss for sure.
And that's the thing to think about just with your pitch. One of the things that you might find, is people who aren't runners and don't get so excited about running, mm-hmm. they're going to go to market potential and total addressable market. How big could this be? Is it venture backable? Is a question mm-hmm. John asked. I think for you, you're either going to want to find people who just so resonate with running that they're going to go, I want to make this bet anyway, and we'll see where it goes over time. Or you're going to have really great answers mm-hmm. For the people who go, is this too small? Are runners going to pay enough in this format? And the competitive risks exist as well. One more question for you. When you think about all the things you mentioned related to sensors and tracking, how scientific can it get to your knowledge so far? Are there other products in the world, coaches, doctors in the world that give a proxy for the net effect knowing some of this data and making change based on it can have on a person?
Yes. So, I mean, if you're talking, are you talking strictly running form, which is like
anything okay. Where like essentially there's science to the net before and after that mm-hmm. a product like this can have?
Yeah. So when it comes to running form, the existing apps are, you actually have to take a video of yourself running, and those are really accurate. But then furthermore, when it comes to the data that Apple provides, they actually say that it depends on the data, but like the heart rate data is not very accurate, they say. But the ground contact time, which I was talking about earlier, can be very active as well.
And then is it, I guess, like, are there studies, or are there other companies who've been able to use that sort of data to change people's lives? Let me actually make the point, maybe this will help. Like, I would love if, as part of your pitch, you could say, what people don't realize is if you did know this data and you could action on it, here are some before and afters. This company has done a study, or there's this very expensive product that we're trying to make a cheap version of. And you should know that when people use this expensive product, here's what it improves about their running, about their posture, about their form. And so if you can find stuff like that, what's a proxy for the same science that you're engaging in, that can be a really compelling part of the pitch.
Yeah. Cool.
Good job.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Fitness space, tough one, right?
Yep.
What do you think about the notion that you mentioned? Does it make it so that startup founders should not enter this space as frequently, that Apple, Android, all these manufacturers just basically have been going, this seems like something we should own. We should be the wearable.
Just building on top of someone else's platform is dangerous.
Yeah.
I remember I spoke to a founder in Europe who just raised, I think it was a 20 million euro Series B. And they were selling on Android location related data.
Right.
And, Android had just said, oh, we're going to make that illegal now.
Right.
And he's like, what do? Do I return the money? Like, my whole business model is good. And so you really are at risk building on someone else's platform.
It's worth the investment in that case to go for hardware, to your point. Or if you believe that the change you can make using the hardware is significant.
If it's more data. But you asked this question about efficacy of data and the like. We invested in a startup called Owlet. And Owlet wanted to build a little sock that you put on a baby, measures.
Oh, I bought that as a gift for somebody.
There you go.
A few years ago.
There you go. Well, they went public a couple of years ago.
Sorry, I cut you off on describing that. Please say again what the product is for the crowd.
It's a little sock you put on a baby. There's about 4 million babies born a year in the US. About 4,000 die a year from heart, lung complications. So if you monitor pulse, movement, temperature, and blood oxygen level, monitor babies don't die.
Wow.
So they started selling the product, engaged with the FDA, went public. 9 months after it went public, the FDA said, I know we've been talking to you for 3 years, but stop selling.
Wow.
So they last year got 2 FDA clearances, one for the over-the-counter product and one for a hospital grade given under prescription. 8% of babies in the US now leave hospital with an Owlet sock.
Wow.
Which is just kind of amazing.
That's incredible.
They've monitored 2 million babies, about 1 trillion heartbeats. They've shared a lot of data with hospitals, and they're starting to get some of this research data where they can start to predict things. It's kind of amazing company, like
what
saves
a pivot
babies'
from
lives.
a business that went public to
Basically
change.
It really wasn't a pivot. It was the same business.
Right.
They had a quarter of negative revenue when they had to take everything off the shelf, repackage it. And the FDA said, everything you're doing is fine. You just can't alert people.
It's like a consumer harm sort of thing, but actually
you can't say your baby's oxygen level has dropped to the point that it's dangerous, because that's a medical statement. So now they're the only FDA approved products in the marketplace. And it's a public company if folks are interested. I think it's got a ton of upside. It's a great company. But my point being, it takes a lot of work to produce the unique data, but the position of the company now is huge barriers to entry.
Right. Fantastic for them. Awesome. All right, let's bring up our next founder. Welcome up. Well, you go. All right, tell us, what is your name?
My name is J. Paul.
All right, J. Paul, are you ready to tell us what you're building and receive some feedback?
As ready as I'll ever be.
You have a minute. Tell us, what are you building?
Cool. So my name is Jay Paul. I'm the founder of a company called Foncii, and we're a technology company that helps you save time and eat better. So think about the last time you're trying to figure out for a dinner, maybe a special occasion or just a casual night after work. You do your typical Google search, you say best sushi in New York or cheap tacos near me, and you're just seeing hundreds and hundreds of endless articles and reviews, and you're sifting through all of them. What's Eater saying? What are people on influencers saying? What's the Yelp rating? And then you have the dreaded question, can I actually eat there? Is there an available reservation? What we've done is we've essentially compiled all of that into one centralized platform. So we call it Perry. It's a conversational Gen AI chatbot that you can talk to. So if you ask Perry the same question, what am I eating for dinner? It'll say, you should check out Hawksmoor in Flatiron. Eater and Infatuation wrote about it. And New York City, she's an influencer. She mentioned that you should order the Sunday brunch. There's an available reservation for 6 p.m. You should go check it out. We launched about 3 months ago, have 100 or so content creators. Thanks.
Good job. You or me first?
I don't know how many help me order dinner, eat out, food recommendation engines.
How long have you been in DC?
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of people try to solve this. And, I was actually at lunch today with someone and we were debating this, which is, we think this goes on to these foundational models. And the question's going to be trust. So, I was positing that if Apple did it, it would be built on an AI that sits on your phone and is your trusted agent. And if they say go somewhere, you'll trust them. And the person I was having lunch with said, yeah, that's kind of how Google started, but then people paid for placement. So in these scenarios, how are you going to deal with pay for placement? Because, you go on Google now and everything above the fold is pay for placement and no one goes below the fold. So I don't know the answer. My sense on this is I think trust and who you're an agent for. Are you my agent or an agent for the restaurant or whoever's bought is important. So as I come to think about it, I think, you can just execute and see how it goes. I think you do run the risk that if it becomes a big business, there'll be a lot of people coming after it and it's difficult to know what barriers you build around it. It's not always the first person who puts something together that ends up owning that market. And I get the problem you're solving, but again, you're going to have jaded VCs like, this is the 500th, help me order my food, help me where I'm going to go out to eat business.
That's my question. So, tell us, because I've even heard, not being in VC, occasional angel and founder myself, I've heard these pitches maybe 499 times. Yeah. What's different about your attempt here?
So I think it's a couple of different things. You're completely spot on with the fact that there's a lot of bias, right? There's bias in Yelp and all these other platforms. What we do differently and what I hold as like the main mission is that we are an unbiased platform for restaurant recommendations. Wow. And the way we do it is our business model is not a pay for play business model.
What is it?
The way we make money is all of the data that we have that powers these recommendations is just as valuable to the restaurants and other hospitality businesses. Hold on.
They buy it.
Hold on. And what's happening now, especially post-pandemic, is all marketing is being done on social media. And restaurants have no clue, one, which social media influencers they should be.
Can they afford the data?
Sorry?
Can restaurants afford the data?
Yeah.
Isn't it a traditionally very low margin business?
It is a very low margin business, but any restaurant spending anywhere from 3 to 5% on marketing as a given. But
wouldn't that be paying for placement
on
the platform, or how are you selling the data?
So what we do is we act as a mediator. We have technology that matches influencers with restaurants for content creation, and we get a cut from the influencer for every dollar that they get paid by the restaurant. Because nowadays, all marketing for restaurants happen on social media.
Yeah, so you're an influencer marketing platform, and that's another set of businesses we don't like. And the reason is you don't own the influencer. So the influencer will be on your platform until another platform comes along and pays them 10% more. And so they're great to build $1-2 million businesses. They're very difficult to build big businesses on. Someone will do it, but that's been our general concern about that type of business.
Quick response, if you don't mind. Have you guys heard of a company called LTK? Reward style?
Yeah, the social commerce company.
$2 billion valuation. What they've done is they've turned the affiliate game they create the affiliate link for anything beauty, fashion, tech product. What we've done to keep the influencers on the platform is we've built something called Foncii Maps, which just at a high level, it turns your entire Instagram page into an interactive map. And influencers like it because they get more valuable data about their followers than just likes or comments or shares. They're actually able to see if you make a video on Hawksmoor, how many people are going to that restaurant because of you, rather than just seeing how many likes or shares or saves are happening.
I, as the influencer, would see what I'm driving or what other influencers.
What you're driving to that restaurant.
So
because we're plugged into the reservation systems.
Interesting UX. Like Yelp or restaurant recommendation is such a tired product concept. Yeah. But you just said something novel. I don't. I promise what I'm about to say, I don't mean as intensely as it sounds. For the first time this pitch, because the rest of your thing is a machination of former pitches in this world of restaurant recommendation startups. But this, as like as an influencer, there's some sort of map that gets generated for me.
The free map.
AI-driven insights or ability to use that data instantly on TikTok or Instagram with a button click
and use that to generate ideas for more content.
Why is that
to
not
create?
Your entire, not just pitch, but product? Why do the rest of it?
Because what we're building, at the end of the day, we are a data aggregation platform. That's how we're able to power the search engine.
Every influencer would say, oh, if I get to somehow just press a button and get all these insights, that's the data I need. Why do you need all the users to also be on the platform? But couldn't you just have it be, they can one click use TikTok, one click use Instagram as the influencer trying to share information, share their map.
So all the influencers on our platform have it as their link in bio. So if you go on any of our influencers, the first link you'll see is foncii.com/Jenny'sBreadBaby. You click on that. It's one for influencers. So you click on that. You see all of her content on her Instagram as a map. You click on any one of those specific posts, and then you can actually visit the restaurant, make a reservation directly, goes through Resi or OpenTable or whatnot, and we track all of that data. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I feel like your pitch is morphed. In the beginning, I was imagining like a consumer-facing restaurant recommendation chatbot, and now I'm imagining more like an influencer product and platform and utility.
Yeah.
And so I like the end pitch.
Right.
I don't like that we had to spend that many minutes to get there.
Well, it's a complex pitch, and what you're trying to build is a marketplace. And marketplaces are tough because how do you measure cost of acquisition? How do you measure lifetime value? How are you going to get your app in front of a crowded market of people? You're going to have to spend money to market that. So the economics are very difficult to pull out of these marketplaces. I think what you're hearing from both of us is just think about the pitch and think about how to get the story over as simply as possible. But it is a more complex story.
Yeah. And just one last point, if you don't mind. I think what's really interesting in the realm of social media is, you have all these different verticals of influence, your beauty influencers, fintech influencers. And in this category, food influencers are pretty much the lowest paid influencers. And the reason that's happening is because restaurants, as willing as they are to spend money, they don't understand the value that these influencers bring because there is no data currently available to do so. And so that's why we have to go through the system that we're doing in order to get the influencers, the restaurants, and the
Again, this should be the core of your pitch. It's like the problem, restaurants have some money. It's a low margin business, but they love getting ROI. If they can actually prove and have attribution on a seat that they acquired with dollars, they'd spend more dollars. Influencers, great way to get people to restaurants. New York is proof of it. What we enable is we have a set of tools that allow an influencer to take what they want to influence, do it more easily, more one click, more beautifully, whatever it might be. And because it's happening piped through our platform, deep linked or however it might be, we get to track it and showcase to the restaurant exactly what happened and why it happened, which allows that loop to happen thousands of more times per day in every city that your
restaurants only pay per reservation that they get.
That's the center of your pitch. The rest of it sounds like startups that have been done before. This part of it sounds something new.
Cool.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Restaurant startups, hard. But influencer startups, also hard.
Very
But
hard.
a platform play that I think easier to get behind if it's a product that an influencer can value and use.
Maybe. I mean, the interesting thing is very few venture capitalists have an accounting background.
Mm.
And so when you've seen these two-sided marketplaces come up, it's often because the math doesn't work, but the VCs don't know that. So I don't even remember, there used to be, I can't remember what it was called, a startup where you drive into New York City and someone meets you and takes your car. And then when you want to leave New York City, they bring the car to you.
Lux, was it? Or something like that?
I can't.
Lux? It was Lux?
Yeah. And the economics didn't make sense. And the whole idea was arbitrage. They would drive the car to a cheap lot, so you wouldn't pay for the expensive lot.
Parking
and
as a
you had
service.
the advantage that you didn't have to go back to the lot. You could have a startup downtown and your dinner on the Upper East Side, and you didn't have to then go back to get to where your car was or work out where you wanted to park. That was the theory. Just the economics never worked.
Actually expensive to park. Turns out. All right. Next founder up. Come on over. All right. For everybody in the crowd and at home, what's your name?
I'm Sean Fennell.
Sean, are you ready to tell us your story and receive some feedback?
I am.
You have a minute. Tell us, what are you building?
Okay. So I'm Sean. I'm a product designer and co-founder and CEO of 99 Questions. So like many people, I'm always striving to grow, to be better, to be more mentally healthy. And yet without a therapist, it's always been challenging to really recognize the distortions and the patterns that have been holding me back. I've tried self-reflection. I've been very frustrated with how journals are not particularly smart. They don't offer guidance. They don't offer feedback. They're often very surface level. And frankly, they often feel like a chore. So we're building a platform that really levels up the journaling experience and gamifies self-discovery. So users work through our series of provocative, thoughtful questions, and in the process, unlock, insights and breakthroughs into how they uniquely think, feel, see the world. And along the way, they have an AI co-pilot that actually understands them better the more they answer as well. So to really kind of aid that process. So our goal is to be essentially the number one tool for self-reflection.
All right.
So this is not a therapy startup.
No, I guess you could call it self-therapy, but, I don't like to use the word to kind of, then you start thinking HIPAA and, all those sorts of, red flags in that sense. So this is more of a self-reflection, self-discovery, and it could be self-therapy too, yeah.
And is your sense that once someone's used this for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, they'll carry on using it for years and years?
I do believe it's going to be incredibly sticky because the more you use it, the smarter it does, understand you. Once you find a therapist, for example, that you get to know, they understand how you think, they understand how, the patterns and traps you tend to fall into. Our goal is for that AI layer to really understand you in much the same way for people, priced out of therapy or, just kind of intimidated by the concept, and really making journaling and leveling up that practice to be something closer to therapy.
Over the past few months, ChatGPT has gained memory. Today, OpenAI announced GPT-4o. Have you seen the announcement? It allows them to not only, kind of see and use image and translate more natively in the base model than prior releases. But one of the things they were demonstrating is the improved voice assistant, which can understand tone and emotion. And, in real time, they were saying sound more like this and sound more expressive and sound more robotic. And what stops foundational model companies from just being good enough at this? If you were offering me a product and I had to pay a premium for it, or I had it in my ChatGPT subscription or my Claude subscription, how do you break out of that comparison?
Yeah. So, it's a great question. I think there are some kind of startups playing more in that space of basically being a chat GPT skin. I don't think that's defensible. I don't think that you will get swallowed up by the foundational models. What we're trying to do is kind of build a much more of a journaling interface. It's not really chat based. It's more of a, there's all these questions and you can answer them, and it's more of a gamified interface. And we're trying to make self-reflection and self-discovery a more playful, more fun thing to do than necessarily like, this is my AI therapist. I don't think the AI kind of chatbot, modality.
So what's the hypothesis? I have an idea here, but what's the hypothesis at the center of what you're saying? Tell me what you think is at the core of why what you're doing will work for people.
I think an AI therapist is a bit uncanny valley in that sense. I don't think it resonates with me or a lot of people I know. I think people are incentivized by this, primal urges for collection, for exploration, for rewards. I think the gamified notion of self-discovery has a lot more, ability to really draw people in, really unlock these different aspects of themselves versus like, this is what happened to me today. This is why I'm sad, have a generic AI model kind of spit back self-help at you. So,
Bastian, raise your hand. So Bastian pitched the first episode of the Feedback Loop, a startup for couples aimed at helping them have better relationships. It was called, and probably is still currently called, Quizu. And it's being renamed already because, as we discussed. And the thing that was fascinating about to me, is trying to provide what couples therapy provides, but through an app with nudges to the couple, with reminders, with gamification. I think there's something to these nudge startups, to these behavior triggered and triggering in a positive way, triggered and triggering products that get at us in new UX and new user experiences in ways that make us do things that we otherwise want to do, but up until this point haven't been able to actually embrace. But I think that needs to be way more of your pitch when you otherwise have something that a foundational model might consume and swallow. In fact, it should be your entire pitch is to tell me about how your product is actually driven off of delighting the user and creating this crafted experience. And how will it remind me? How will it nudge me? How will it convince me to do the things that I would otherwise not do? Even if I had ChatGPT try to do it for me, there's still no accountability there. There's no reward system or mechanism, but you might build those things. And I think that's probably all of the things you're imagining and you're building and you're designing, but that actually needs to be your pitch when your pitch is something, I say this in a good way, so basic, as in, the first headline of like journaling, it's like, okay, but I can do that in ChatGPT, but that's not what you mean. So you have to tell me way sooner what you mean so that I'm on board with your flavor of a solution. That's my thought.
Great.
No, I think that's true. And I the announced today out of OpenAI, was compared to her, in the movie. And I think this nudging aspect is something that's going to become commoditized. And I'm not sure how it's going to become commoditized. I don't know if startups like yours will start and own various spaces, or if the large platforms will build it, or OpenAI will build it. It does come down to trust and how much you want to open up your inner person. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if you watch Shogun or not.
It's on my list.
Yeah. It's so when you watch it, you have your public self and you have your private self. Then you have like this walled off gardens of yourself as really what you're thinking. And this notion of not sharing that. And yet the only way these platforms work is if you really share your innermost secrets. But do you really want to share them with Google, who's now going to be marketing to you? Or do you want to share them with some startup you've never heard of? Or are you going to trust to have it running on a local LLM? I don't know how this plays out, but I think it will play out.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And privacy is like, up and down our website. Security is, I think, the most important thing, because obviously, yeah, that data would be, immensely valuable to sell to data brokers, but that's a pretty dystopian world. But what you described there is actually the shadow, and shadow work in general is really trending upwards. It's, 150% increases on Google searches. So people are very hungry for, I think, this kind of shadow and very innermost reflection. But I agree that it's just like trust and safety, I think is crucial as well.
Thanks for sharing.
Okay, thank you guys.
How many people have shared something with ChatGPT or Claude or any of these models and then kind of had a moment of like, oh, that was a lot to share into this chatbot and put this data into the world? Anyone have that moment where they've shared just a little bit too much, gotten a little uncomfortable? There are no hands. One hand. Okay, two hands. Really? I've like sent, for agencies financial data and gone, I've shared fights I've been having over email that I go, I don't know if I'm loving that this is, I don't, use the privacy or archive features. So it's kind of like there. I got over those moments. But to your point, I had those reflections of like, what did I just press enter on? And what does it mean? Thankfully, I think in OpenAI's case, I'm the product of a ChatGPT Pro subscription, at least right now. But to your point, in the future, that might not be true.
Correct.
All right. With that, let's bring up the next founder. Come on up. All right. Tell us, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Bella.
Bella.
Today I'm here to talk about my company, Project B.
Tell us.
But before we talk about Project B, let's talk about Project A, because that's what you guys are all living in. Have you ever found yourself ordering 3 pairs of pants, all in the same style and 3 different sizes, just to try them on and realize that none of them fit you? Well, that contributes to the 30% of all garments that are never bought, sold, or worn due to overproduction. At Project B, we solve that problem by creating custom-fit garments in minutes, combining phone body scanning, AI, and on-demand 3D knitting technology. And we're starting with an essential garment that half the world's population wears every day: bras. Today, we've built our MVP, going from scan to custom fit bra in just 17 minutes. We have a waitlist of 1,500 women and have sold out of our pre-orders. We're working on getting to production ready stage, and if anyone's interested in being involved, hit me up.
Well done. Excellent pitch.
Yeah, the general problem with custom on-demand product is price. I remember Nike was doing this a while ago, and they were expensive shoes, and I don't know if they're still doing it. I love the idea because there's so much wastage out there. It just strikes me that the way people shop, it's just a little out of sync with that. So I'll give you an example. Amazon's just shut down their stores. You walk in, you take something off the shelf, and the reason why they did is it only works for a limited number of SKUs, and it's not how people want to shop. You go in, you have anxiety. I take something off the shelf, I put it back on. Are they going to charge me or not? Was it 20 seconds? Was it 30 seconds? Was it over the limit? Was it not? It's just not how people want to shop.
Am I accidentally stealing?
They feel like they're being observed all the time, etc. And so what looked really good on paper didn't translate because it didn't tie in to how people want to do something. I think there's a lot of attractiveness, and we've looked at this space quite a bit. There's a lot of attractiveness in doing this. The question is, how can you do it economically?
I can tell you a bit about that. So it's actually quite economical. It costs us about $20 to make each bra, including shipping. And we sell them for $120, which is just slightly above like a premium bra price. So an affordable luxury. So quite scalable.
Let's pause for a sec, because I think this will go to my pitch feedback. Tell us a little bit more, especially us. We don't have as much experience in this space. When you said it's $20, how much of that is the customization, what we might call the like wastage reducing technology in terms of cost versus the base materials?
Yeah, so that $20 comes from the materials and then the time on the knitting machine.
So what is the customization portion of it? What is the sizing portion?
Yeah, so there's no sizing. So essentially from the body scan taken on the phone, we generate custom production instructions for computerized knitting machinery, which we use to produce the garment.
And so how much of a cost premium does that add to if you were just building a bra company that sold a certain number of SKUs?
like per bra.
Yeah. If you had to, I know you're probably still early, but like if you had to
Yeah,
put a ballpark.
so a bra it is more expensive. I would say it's about twice as expensive the way we produce it versus if it was produced in like China in mass production.
So I have more questions, but like I want to tie a loop that I'm putting together, which is like, if I'm an investor hearing this pitch, these are all the only questions that matter to me, which is how cheap has she made it? I'd also be curious, and this is a real question I want you to answer in a sec, but like, is there a reason you chose bras first? I'm going to assume maybe there's some like economical factors to the customization that pants would be way more expensive to do custom sizing or body skin.
No, it's a
sizing.
particular problem.
A particular problem too.
Yeah.
Right.
80% of women wear the wrong bra size today.
80%?
80%.
Fun facts should be part of pitches. But this is the second fun fact about women's sizing. In the first episode of the Feedback Loop, we learned that women's pants were based off of privileged, I'm going to get this kind of wrong, but privileged white women back in like the 1800s, and the sizing hasn't changed since then or something like that. So, well,
it's actually interesting. US sizing has changed. So in the US, I'm a medium, and in the UK, I'm an extra large, and it can be tight. There is that. It's kind of interesting. You talk about pants. There's a website called, I think it's makeyourownjeans.com. And for the last decade, that's just where I get my jeans.
Oh,
and
okay.
I just, whenever a pair gets worn out, I just print up another pair. But it's the same idea. What's intrigued me is, how do you market and get people to want to buy it? And I think starting with bras is a good place, because a lot of women feel ill-serviced.
Totally. And we've seen some like recent companies come up like Third Love, who have used like different fit data to help women find their size, where it is a big problem where women don't know their bra size when they're shopping. So they're actually willing to change their shopping behavior to get a better solution and make it easier. So again, this is a reason why we're deliberately starting with bras to then change that buying behavior.
And then do you have that longer term either go-to-market method or production manufacturing method that will make this applicable and as easy to do across other SKUs?
Yeah, I mean, today with our manufacturing partnerships, we could make 1,000 bras a day. So we're fully capable for scale. And then we're going to focus on women's intimate apparel where returns are high and fit is an issue. So our next product will be swimwear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just have to say, I loved the form of pitch. I felt like the pain point, and I felt the kind of like the question you let us down led to a conclusion that I went, yeah, I'm going to agree with this. I'm moving on to your, you gave me context and questions that had me nodding, such that by the time you gave your product pitch, I was already with you. So, I think a lot of good stuff to learn from other founders in the crowd should tune into.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
I really, I like this space, but to your point, I don't know a lot about the cost of doing this. And then to your point, other solutions being, kind of more technology light. But it feels like in the future, we must all at some time horizon, some inflection point, get custom clothes now.
I think men and women shop differently. I think men, and we could do a poll of the audience here, but once you find a pair of socks or briefs or jeans or whatever it is, my tendency is just to go and buy a closet full of them and work through for the next decade.
My second, by the way, compliment to his jacket, which I think is fantastic today. A round of applause to your jacket. All right, let's bring our next founder up. Welcome. What's your name?
My name is KP.
All right, KP, are you ready to tell us your story and receive some feedback?
Yes.
Well, tell us, KP, what are you building?
Okay. So how many of us here have tried to create retro games? How many of us love retro games? Again, a small audience. Okay. So yeah, I have also tried to do that, and I know the challenges in doing that. And now there are new models such as Genie that enable to create retro game levels using text prompts. And we are Retrogenie to help empower game creators to create retro game levels really fast using AI. And I am KP. I am an incoming PhD candidate in AI and have been a game modder myself and an ex-product marketer at NetEase, one of the largest mobile game publishers in the world. And we also have Dhruv, based out of Bay Area. He's a software engineer at Meta. And we are excited to bring this capability to not just retro gamers, but the future generation of game creators for video games.
As a minute, good job. What is the product exactly?
So it's essentially a suite of agents that can help you create game levels, retro game levels.
Inside a retro game?
Inside a retro game.
Define a retro game for me. Like, name one.
Oh, so like Mario, Contra, Pac-Man.
So this would, am I emulating the game?
Yes, you are emulating
inside Retrogenie?
You have emulators, and Retrogenie helps to, kind of modify on top of that.
And I'm making a custom level.
Yes. Yeah.
Using chat or using tools?
Using chat as the starting point, and then you can generate like the background scene, the assets, the sounds, even some of the scripting.
Do people pay for emulators right now?
Currently, the digital emulators are free, but they have been like number 2 on the Apple App Store as of today in the entertainment category.
What in particular is number 2?
One of the retro
emulators.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then does this work across all games? Is it like agnostic to, like, how does it work from a platform perspective?
You mean retro games in general?
No, Retrogenie.
Oh, Retrogenie. Yeah. So we are currently on web, like a web-based.
What am I? So I log into my Retrogenie account. Am I uploading a ROM? Like, how am I creating that level?
Yeah, so you have the option to, so we have like open source libraries currently of these retro games, and we essentially, modify them on the fly. So using.
So I'm doing something that you already have in the catalog, basically.
Yeah.
So I have like a list of options. I click, I want to customize Mario Brothers, and then I get into the workflow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do you get paid?
So we think like 3 different revenue streams. One of them would, of course, be like donation based, which is quite common in retro game emulators. The other thing is in terms of, let's say, the creator payouts, wherein all these creators, they have like different types of deals. And finally, we also want to have like a SaaS type of subscription offering for, let's say, larger gaming indies or game studios.
Thank you.
I'm a nerd. I like games. I'm not like huge into retro games, but I get it. I every once in a while will pop open, something on, my Switch or something. I also consume Twitch. So the general gaming community is one of my communities. So I think I get it. Knowing all of that, though, I question how hungry the demand for this really is. Can you give me a sense, like, if I'm skeptical and I'm someone who's like a nerd's a nerd, what's your sense for how much people are hungering for this?
Yeah, so I can give examples. So basically, last month Mario Maker was shut down, even though there were millions of creations that were made on that game specifically. And then also like retro game consoles or not game consoles, but retro game arcades, they also keep shutting down. So there is like that nascent hunger in the folks who are like OG gamers, right? Who have grew up around playing these games, and this is now converting into digital retro games. And apart from that, there is also the budding audience of young gamers who are anyway used to, game creation within Roblox and such. So it's just native for them to, be exposed to more game creation style platforms, essentially. And we want to start with retro.
I think you both need to live a little bit more in your mission and live a little bit more in your product.
Sure.
Can I try pitching you Retrogenie? Yes. Can I pitch Retrogenie?
Yes, for sure.
So nostalgia is a big thing amongst our modern populace, whether it's sequels to movies, video games that everyone kind of is wanting for in the past. We can see this with things like Mario Maker, the game that Nintendo produced that allows you to play the old games, but with new user-made levels, or Twitch Plays Pokemon, where people are all watching, and controlling a character on the screen collaboratively. These experiences made new again tap into both the nostalgia that we all have and is deeper than ever, and the modern UX required to have us all share that experience once more. So what we do with Retrogenie is we take these beloved games, the ones that in particular influencers, streamers on Twitch, on YouTube are so passionate about, and we modernize them by enabling users to create custom levels, maybe integrating them to platforms like Twitch, where users can collaboratively play these games together. Essentially, again, just modernizing any retro game experience to today's world. We have a bunch of ideas around monetization. I'm going to skip that portion of the pitch, but the whole idea of Retrogenie is to take all of the things that we want to experience again, but modernize them so that they're not as painful to use in the past and maybe even more enjoyable to enjoy together. Retrogenie?
I mean, yeah, it feels niche to me, but also, like, who owns the IP?
Yeah,
like, if I own Pac-Man, or if I own Tetris, let's say, who's a very litigious firm, and you want to build a Tetris level, yeah, I don't think they're going to let you. So how do you deal with that? Because you are stepping on top of other people's IP.
Yeah, so I think that's something which we would need guidance on, definitely. Not something that I have figured out yet, or we have figured out yet. But the idea is that you can also create character sprites. That's like something that we want to work towards. I have tested that a little bit. And the idea is that you would change some of the, let's say, traditional IP of the original game publisher, right? So that way, the look and feel doesn't, infringe on someone's IP, but still has that classical elements.
It's like you're starting a sneaker company called Bikey,
Well, there are actually such communities, the ones that I'm describing. There are such communities.
But do they monetize?
Yeah, but once you get big and on the radar,
yeah, and I think when money changes hands.
That's when people get upset. And again, I bring up Tetris particularly because they're incredibly litigious to protect their IP and to stop there being variants. And there's Tetris, and then there's nothing like it.
Okay.
Yeah. So do look into the IP side.
Cool product.
Thank you.
Quick note and detour on nostalgia to talk about that Apple commercial. It seems to make people think that Apple was toying with, kind of our past. So for those who didn't watch it, it's a bunch of items from the past 20 years of technology and art smushed in a compactor into the thinnest iPad in the world.
Yeah, and someone took the ad and ran it backwards, and it was less offensive.
It was definitely a better ad. Were you offended by the original? No, but it did seem to offend people's nostalgia.
Well, so look, I think a lot of people talked about how various businesses have died on the Apple click wheel,
right?
Reference to the iPod, and just look at the single lens reflex camera industry.
Right.
You can run through a whole series of things, and I think it's all right for people to say it, but I think when Apple says it, it comes over as menacing.
Right.
And some people took it as menacing.
Punching down as opposed to punching up.
Right. And to be quite honest, it's shocking that the ad got all the way through.
Sometimes takes that one outsider set of eyeballs to realize what's
right.
wrong.
But companies should be self-aware.
Right. Super fascinating. All right, next founder up. Come on over.
Nice to meet you.
As well.
Good to meet you.
All right, tell us, what is your name?
Cool. Should get right into it.
What's your name?
Ethan.
Ethan, are you ready to tell us your story and receive some feedback?
Ready.
You have a minute. What are you building?
Cool. So my name is Ethan, and I was most recently the lead of MongoDB Search. And so for those unfamiliar with Search is the cornerstone of every Gen AI application. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short, is the backbone of every AI app. It's the underlying architecture, and the retrieval part is search. And so I worked there for 3 years and decided to leave MongoDB and build out that underlying infrastructure and democratize it for any developer. So Mixpeek, Mixpeek, is a multimodal data pipeline, connects to any database, stream that database changes into a pipeline of ML models, and it outputs it right into the destination of your choice. So it's any database, and developers never have to worry about embeddings, metadata, text again, which are all, again, the foundations of every Gen AI app. And that's Mixpeek.
Good job.
Yeah. And we're hiring engineers.
Hiring engineers.
Hiring engineers. So if anybody is excited about it.
It's good someone's hiring.
Yeah. Always hiring engineers. Yeah.
I understand, kind of the importance of RAG today, even in the environment of ever increasing context windows. I'm not sure what your product did exactly. Give us a little bit more of the literals.
So whenever you have embeddings, there's pre-processing that it has to go through.
Okay.
And that pre-processing is non-differentiating to engineers. So engineering teams have to do this, and it makes no difference to the business. It's not close to the value chain, and it's incredibly non-differentiated. So it has to go through all of these steps. These steps are all things that everybody does. We automate it.
What are those pre-processing steps? Give us a few.
Yeah. So like if you have a PDF, you do OCR, and then you take the contents of the PDF from that OCR and you extract the cells and the tables. And it's like, it's very bespoke depending on what you do.
What's the difference between this and like the embeddings endpoints that like an OpenAI offers?
So they optimize for speed. We don't care about speed. We run on commodity hardware. It's also open source. So anybody can take it and run it on their own hardware. The services that you're referring to, they all optimize for speed. We don't care about speed. We care about the fact that it happens. It could take a day. It could take a week. We just guarantee that it gets indexed always.
Do they have an issue with not getting indexed always?
Yeah. Yeah. So in the world of databases, there's always the tricky thing of like, how do you ensure that a change from your source gets manifested into wherever you have to send it?
I guess I'm saying, are embedding services bad at that in particular?
So embedding is the end state of the data.
Right.
Yeah. So it has to go through steps X, Y, and Z to get to the embeddings, because the embeddings are the representative of like what you actually want to feed into the model.
Right. So we take a PDF and we turn it into essentially a vectorized piece of data.
Technically deep. I like it.
I've played with all of these things myself a little bit to be dangerous enough to understand. So we take a PDF, we turn it into vectorized data, which means a large language model can understand it and use it in context. Correct me, or maybe the thing I'm struggling with is I've used OpenAI's embedding endpoint. I've seen some embedding startups. What's different about yours in particular? The speed thing doesn't hit for me. Let me put it that way. I'm like, okay, fine. He doesn't focus on speed. But what is the thing that I get conveniently? Maybe it's in the context of these developer teams that you're talking about. Maybe I don't understand how much pre-work is kind of relevant to them, but
yeah.
How can you differentiate it for me as someone who's touched all of this?
Well, I'll give you an actual use case that we're working through now. We integrate with S3, your object store. So you upload a PDF into Cloud Store. We sync to that Cloud Store. And so as these PDFs, CSVs, whatever they are, as they get added to S3, it goes through this pipeline. Pipeline can be take the rows, do named entity recognition, which is basically grab keywords, and then maybe generate an embedding. So that's 3 steps. Each has the option of potential of failing. Especially when you do it at scale, you have hundreds of thousands of CSVs that you're adding. So that's what we guarantee, is that all of those changes in your S3 go through those pipelines and then get dumped back into your embedding.
Vector database startups like a Pinecone, Forma,
we integrate with them.
Do they offer their own embedding services? Because
we're not doing embedding services. We're not doing embeddings.
Okay.
We're the underlying replication pipeline.
Okay.
So the stages that the data has to go through in order to get to an embedding state.
What are those stages?
So it's a CSV, let's say named entity, like extracting tags, right? Reading rows, generating embeddings, and then sending them into a Pinecone.
I keep using embedding service, which clearly is probably the wrong term, but why are you correcting me? Why is that not an embedding service?
So when I think of embedding service, I think of inference. Querying.
Oh, okay.
So the actual RAG part is over here.
Yeah. Okay.
You need to get the data into a state where the RAG works.
Let's call this, what do you want to call it again?
Pre-processing.
Pre-processing. Do they not offer pre-processing? No. Why not?
I mean,
the database.
Yeah, no database does. It's too bespoke. Everybody has their own thing.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's the thing I'm most missing.
Yeah.
Is like, I've touched enough of this to be dangerous, but I don't know enough about the problem. So until you said it's too bespoke, now as soon as you said it's too bespoke, I imagined, okay, maybe it's not as simple. When I'm using it and I'm testing, a career coach chatbot, it's like easy for me to use some of these endpoints or these vector stores.
So that's the biggest issue in the space is no one's going to production because everybody is doing proof of concepts.
This is what you want to say, right? Is like, now think about a production use case. Think of XYZ company. XYZ company has this in their data store. And so to get it to an embedding stage, you can't just utilize the other products everyone else is using. Here's what you have to do. Here's all the pre-processing you have to do. Here's what's involved. Here's the cost. Here's the time. That's the target that Mixpeek is going after. And I think being specific there would be really helpful.
Good
You're
feedback.
open sourced. How are you going to get paid?
Managed service, usage-based model. Everyone does it. Databricks, Mongo, Redis.
What do we think? Do we like it? Do we not like it?
I do like it.
I like it.
Well, I'm glad you get it. It's good.
It's a fascinating, now that you've drilled down to me, I think like the general problem space is super fascinating. In your pitch, I'd focus so much more on, especially don't be afraid of like being overly technical. I think a lot of founders are afraid of losing an investor. You can find a way to communicate both the technical version in case they know enough that their brain starts to run out of you, and the business pain point that you're solving. Mix that a little bit in your pitch,
right?
Because then I don't immediately, I first had just a laundry list of questions. You don't want that either. You want someone who goes, I get it. I want to clarify a few things, but again, answer a few more of my questions in your pitch.
Good feedback.
Good stuff. Well done.
Thank you.
Interesting one. How do you think about these technology platforms building for AI use cases, the picks and shovels products around AI?
I think what we would do is simply reference it with our companies that are doing this and see how differentiated it would be. Maybe introduce them, see if they want to use it. And then that's part of diligence.
It would become very easy if you hear, hey, this pain point is vivid and I'll pay a lot for it.
Exactly.
There we go. All right, next founder up. Come on over. Welcome, welcome. What's your name?
Thank you. I'm Stephen McAlpine from my company's name, INTRVL.
All right. Are you ready to tell us about INTRVL and receive some feedback?
Of course.
You have a minute?
Here. Yeah. All right.
What are you building?
So first, the digital advertising ecosystem was built around showing people products and then having them visit online stores. But what if you want to do something different? Like, what if you want to inspire adoption service workers who are feeling a little like less enthusiastic about their jobs because they no longer believe foster care individuals can actually be adopted? Like, what happens if you are wanting to communicate to parents who underappreciate the food service workers who are preparing meals for their kids? INTRVL, we combine models and digital surveys to rapidly generate audiences for digital targeting for these niche use cases. And better than that, we also can measure and optimize digital performance based off the impact it has on perceptions. Nonprofits and agencies love what we do. We are projected to do $4 million in revenue this year. We grew 2x versus year to date last year, 100x versus 2 years ago, and we're raising $2 million.
Wow.
Wow, indeed. Wow. I think I got what the product is towards the end. It sounds like it's some sort of data and market analysis and influence toolkit. But I'm not sure exactly what it looks like. Before I ask you, did you get a product, or are you still a little bit?
It sounds like it's more of a survey type product embedded within advertising units.
Tell us now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We run digital advertising surveys that allow us to target audiences that are part of programs or could be part of programs to like figure out like who's an eligible audience, who matches the profile of like the intended target, and then also we can continue to run those surveys to see, does it change hearts and minds?
I'm going to give you some honest feedback about your examples. I think they're bad.
Yeah.
Because I was lost in them. I'm like, wait, the service workers who make the food for the kids, is that because you're going to tell me like there's some sort of politician or nonprofit that wants to influence food in schools?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. So
it's too hard. Like I just decided to get there on my own to think about, okay, what did that mean? Yeah. But like when you said it, I didn't go there immediately. I was like, what are we talking about right now? What is this product going to be? So I'd say like find examples that are more literal about what organization would use what portion of your product to achieve what outcome.
I actually think examples are problematic here because there's lots of verticals. And as soon as you put an example on it, you lock someone into thinking it only applies to that vertical. So in the 1 minute pitch, I wouldn't go to examples, but I would talk about how you do surveys using ad units and why it's differentiated. A lot of people doing digital surveys.
Yep.
Tell us why it's differentiated.
So we've streamlined for two use cases, which is like the market niche on issue persuasion, and like non-standard like brand metrics of just consideration, favorability, purchase intent. Like a lot of brand advertising is just about that. We're more for any issue, any use case. And we have turned the timeline down to building audiences and then shipping them to demand side platforms into days. So it's fast, it's customized for with a self-serve tool for helping you build whatever audience you want and getting it quickly. And instead of having to rely on off-the-shelf data that doesn't quite provide people with what they actually need. So
what's the difference in you and a competitive product that you're trying to replace? So I assume this generally doesn't sound that infeasible or hard. I mean, I'm sure there are challenges within, but like, what's better about this version versus the past version?
Yeah, so it's helpful to the fact that my company's been around for 3 years, and I've seen how people use other tools. YouTube has brand lift surveys that can basically tell you, are your ads moving hearts and minds on a few things that they force you to ask about, and it doesn't give you data that's portable. It doesn't generate an audience that you can take to any platform, like whether you want to run CTV, OTT. We do away. Our system is portable across any digital platform and non-digital, so we can build audiences of any type. But we use digital surveys to make it fast. And because we're not trying to sell you more advertising, we're not trying to sell YouTube ads, we're not trying to sell like ads on another platform, like a programmatic advertiser, like Stackit App. They have digital surveys, but they're trying to sell you more ads on Stackit App. We don't care. We don't care how you're buying ads. We're trying to give you a better audience and then tell you what's working, what's not. Like we work for you, not for them. Like that's what's different about us.
I'm a little bit still confused on customer picking you ahead of those. I mean, I get it if it's like you don't want to use a product where I'm confused on why this wouldn't exist in a format that's already acceptable to me.
Mm-hmm. So media agencies love us because they have customers that are nonprofits, advocacy orgs, or corporations that are trying to change public opinion about brands. And media agencies know advertising data. They know what's available. They know what's on the shelf. They want differentiation. We give them differentiation. It's easy for them to see us as a tool that helps them win more business because they can easily make a better custom audience for their client who's trying to do something special through INTRVL's tools. We give them audiences you can't buy off the shelf. This isn't just demo targeting.
Why can't I buy it off the shelf?
There's no model off the shelf for the adoption service providers who are losing faith that kids in foster care are adoptable, and for a foundation that is trying to boost adoption rate.
And why is that hard? Why is finding that audience hard?
You need to have enough to be able to collect the exact data for adoption service workers who are currently feeling.
How do you do that?
How I do that? We run our digital surveys against audiences that potentially could be that exact.
Why do other people not do that?
They are focusing on the big corporations and the big brands right now. They haven't seen this niche. These are for small players. We came out of political advertising, which is the tightest time frame.
Everything we just talked about has to be like the basis of your pitch.
Yeah.
Because now I'm seeing that you're saying these small audiences are hard to target. Ad style techniques allow us to reach these audiences more quickly. This is a niche that's been untapped. We saw it in political advertising because these are small budget campaigns, but we've created digital tools that make it low cost to deliver.
Yep.
And that will, have me understand what took a lot more, I was like, how is it differentiated? Because you kept saying differentiated.
Yep.
And we got there.
Yep.
But bring more of that to the top of your pitch.
Yeah, it's helpful. I mean, we're taking the best practices from commercial analytics to the cause space and like making it work for those budgets and timelines.
Too. You have some good lines in there. Yeah. You got to bring some of those lines into your pitch.
I'm testing out a new pitch because we're in the middle of our seed. So this is all fresh material, but this is why I came.
Exactly.
This is not the playbook that got us to 3 years, but I'm trying to refine it. So this is really helpful. These are the notes I wanted. So
fantastic.
It's great.
Well, good luck with it. Good job.
Appreciate it.
I like the political advertising story or political campaign into startup land, because that is a place where the customers don't have a lot of budget. The people are always overstretched. So if you can build in that space, or if you've built digital tools in that space, they probably apply to businesses in some fashion.
They probably do.
Yeah. All right. I think this is our last pitch of the day. So let's bring up our last founder. Hello. How are you doing?
Good.
What is your name?
Deanna Hart.
Deanna, tell us, you have a minute. What are you building?
Okay, so I launched a company called Friend 911. It's a chaperone service for people who don't have someone to pick them up after minor surgery. So if you've been anesthetized or given any sort of sedative, you can't just simply walk out of a doctor's office, jump into a ride share, and see yourself home. You actually need someone to physically collect you, take responsibility for you, and make sure that you get home safely. So there are services that exist in the market, but they're generally cater more towards the elderly or people who have more major invasive types of surgery. What I found was there was a gap in the market to hire somebody to act as a friend would, just to pick you up after your surgery is over and get you home safely. So that's why I launched Friend 911.
Awesome. Good job. Short and sweet pitch. Super fascinating. You go first.
Well, I would have thought most people have someone who can take them, whether it's family or friend or like, I didn't think that this was a market that existed.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in this position multiple times. So that's why I thought if I've been in this position, other people have. I've been given really great feedback when I go to networking events. Either people have been in the position before or they know somebody who has. I think people's social networks are dwindling. People aren't going out as much, particularly living in a city like New York. I'm thinking LA maybe as well, where you don't live close to friends or family, or, again, your social networks might not be as strong as they used to be. People, are like asking somebody to take that much time out of their day too can, be a big ask. So there are many reasons why someone would rely on a service like this, or they just want discretion. They don't want to tell people about what they're doing.
So I get that it's a business. Why is it a venture-back business?
Well, I'm not asking for money right now, but yeah. So it isn't
maybe.
yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it is?
I mean, I think so. Yeah. I'm in the client acquisition stage right now. So I was obviously out in market asking for, paid clients, but I'm in an incubator and they said, you know what, we need to get feedback immediately. So let's just start doing this for free and collecting feedback from clients.
So let's assume we go down the path of it being venture backable. How do you exit? Do you IPO or does a corporate come and buy you?
I have no idea. I mean, I could see, I'm like an Uber maybe, but I wouldn't. I think that the complicated thing is that people are in a vulnerable position, when they've been anesthetized or, given, these sorts of medications. So you don't want it to be automated in a way where you can't guarantee that somebody,
it's not going to be taken advantage of.
Exactly. So it's a lot to think about. I launched in November, so yeah, I haven't gotten to that stage yet.
To me, I'm just skeptical that this is something that should be backed by venture. It strikes me that it's a services business, not a software business. It gets a services margin. You have all of these trust issues and the like, and I don't know how big the addressable market. I don't know what the cost is of this and the like, and how you can get over the trust issue, because ultimately you're ceding some of your personal space, safety, whatever, to a stranger that you've not met before. Building
trust is definitely a priority for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by a couple different things. One, I really want you to encourage you to think about like that airport thing that you did bring up. I was going to bring that up. Like, I think part of your story being, think about how if you're a certain age, far fewer moments of your life are spent picking up or dropping someone off at an airport because of a service like Uber. We've dropped this social expectation. And if you start or you add that narrative in, there's this thing of you saying, well, and there's this other thing that happens to us that we also might have as a social expectation, but either we can't find the right people or we don't want to find the right people, discretion or whatever else it might be. And so we're moving as a society towards maybe this being something that we need to address next. I think that's a really interesting kind of change in how we behave that you could really tap into to discuss why this might be more relevant moving forward. As far as it being venture backable, I had the same thought of Uber, like offering this as like a next to UberX or UberXL, whatever. But I think if you wanted to say, no, there's more to this than that. If you decide to be venture backable, I don't know if this is where your brain already went, but I imagine there are a set of other services like this, where essentially the experience around a procedure and all of the other complications that might require some sense of service. But right now, it's either only for high-end healthcare users or people who do have family to do whatever it might be. But what are all of the surrounding use cases around this experience that you can say, hey, I'm going to monetize these other ways to either subsidize or at least, add to the marginal value of a ride or a piece of care. Question for you, when you think about this in the short term, how do you solve the initial marketplace problem of finding both supply and demand?
Well, right now I'm going to networking events. Yeah, I'm literally just barging into doctors' offices and introducing myself and leaving business cards. People have different suggestions for me. I just don't know, using an Apollo IO to do lead generation for emails. I don't think that's...
I think you're right to go to the providers.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing for you will be, how do you provide supply? And so finding smaller vendors who do this and who provide the service, or people who provide it even on the side of a regular business that they operate, and that way essentially what you're tapping into is these existing people in the existing workflow, because I do think it'd be hard to start from cold, right? To find people with this problem at the right moment, at the right time, it's so costly.
Yeah.
And so instead, infusing yourself inside of these workflows is the right approach.
Yeah.
Super interesting product.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job. All right. So that was our final pitch. There are two other things we're going to do, which is our takeaways and our choices and audience choice. If you're in the audience or if you're at home, the link should be on the screen. If you're in the audience, if you look to your left, there's a QR code and a URL where you can vote for your favorite founder pitch. So go ahead, and while you're opening that link, let me ask John, what are your major takeaways from all those pitches? What do these founders all seem to have in common and need to improve on?
Well, let's start with the most obvious one, that innovation isn't dead. There's lots 100%. Of innovation, a lot of people trying to change the world, and that's what keeps the cycle going. People talk about venture capital dollars, people talk about, where LPs are allocating and the like, but the reality is, there's just a lot of opportunity to mine out there. So that's number one. And number two, I thought the pitches were actually a little bit more buttoned down than I expected coming in.
Yeah. What do you think is their biggest room for improvement overall? If you had to come across with a theme that you'd give to all of these founders or founders, kind of listening, what does everyone need to work on?
Pitch to friends, pitch to people who don't understand, who are outside the industry, and refine the story that way.
I think it's really important also to pitch to people who are friends who don't serve as your constant sounding board. Right. Because you want people who are going to come to your problem not already knowing all the reasons you're going to approach this mission.
Right. That's my point. Pitch to people who haven't heard it before.
Exactly. All right. We'll give you guys a few more minutes to vote. We're almost ready here. So if you haven't voted at home or on your phone, do so. I'll give my takeaway. The biggest thing is context. I've said this before in prior episodes, but providing enough context to make me dangerous, you dangerous, to understand the pitch, the product, be already empathetic by the time you get to your solution. Or you can do it in reverse. You can talk about your solution and then build context. Either way, it needs to come fast and furious, where you're making me dangerous enough to be sympathetic as to, does this problem exist? Is it painful? Why do you have information I don't? Such that I don't have to ask questions as to, hey, is this really relevant? And is this a big, sharp pain in the world?
Right.
Yeah. All right. We are in with our number one and our number two. So if people are ready, I'm going to go ahead and announce this right about now. The number two founder pitch from Audience Choice is Codexa. Congratulations to the pair. There was only one founder up here, but it has a co-founder. Codexa, good job. Before we do number one from the audience crowd, what was your favorite pitch of the night?
Mine was actually the first. I liked Elain.
The first, the legal market norms pitch.
Yes.
A great concept. I think that you and I, being in the venture world, the tech world, have experienced this. You've been in financial services for a long time. This feels real.
We also have a number of legal tech investments. We think it's a really fertile space.
It's also really incredible that how many legal tech startups are clearly coming out and going, this is all too expensive. So whether you're targeting a business or you're targeting even law firms to reduce cost, it's clear this is like a space that needed massive innovation with how many AI startups are being built there. Mine, I'm going to go with Mixpeek. I think he took a while to get there for me, but I really found the notion of pre-processing. When you think about, there's so many AI products being built, but readying companies to use them is still, kind of a huge problem, because we've seen there aren't a lot of use cases in production.
No, it's a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift. So if you can solve that, it's major. All right. And the winner from the crowd is also Mixpeek. Congratulations, Ethan. Good job. Well done. All right, everybody. That's the feedback loop. That's episode 5. Thank you, John, so much for all of your feedback and commentary.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Round of applause for John. And we'll see you next week for episode 6.